Welcome, Ms. Singh. You may proceed when ready.
Good afternoon, at least from where I'm at, Miss Singh. Before we begin, can you see and hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear and see you perfectly. Is it the same for me?
Yes, it is. Thank you. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Sure, ma'am. Hi, everyone. I'm Kiran Singh.
What do you do for a living, Miss Singh?
So I'm an international student at Midland State University, and meanwhile I'm getting my degree, I work part-time at Harlow's Hardware. It's a store in Midland Center.
How long have you been working at Harlow's Hardware?
I have been working at Harlow's since my first year at Midland State. Essentially, one day my mom called me and said, "Patang ki door khareed lena." That means buy kite string. I still don't know why, but I don't argue with my mother. So I went to Harlow's. I saw someone had just quit. I applied and I got the job.
Do you know Dakota Sutcliffe?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I wouldn't say we're the most friendly, but we're civil enough.
What do you mean by that?
Well, ma'am, 2 years ago, I tried to get into Chuggy's, her bar, with a fake ID, and I was caught. And at first, I was pretty pissed. And then over the pandemic, I've realized, how do you Americans say it? There's bigger chickens to fry.
Now, Miss Singh, you mentioned how Chuggy's burned down. Do you know what day that was?
It was August 1st, 2020, ma'am, right after midnight.
How do you know that?
I saw the building get on fire and I called 911, ma'am.
Well, let's take a step back and talk about the events leading up to your call that day. Was there anything important you remember from that day?
So from before midnight, July 31st, I was working the closing shift. And after closing up, when I was taking the trash out in the back of Harlow's, I saw Dakota in the back of Chuggy's.
What was Miss Sutcliffe doing?
From where I was, it looked like she was loading something into her truck.
Would you recognize a map of the area surrounding Chuggy's if shown to you today?
Yes, ma'am, I would.
Your Honor, at this time, let the record reflect that Exhibit 4 is being displayed on the screen. Miss Singh, what are we looking at here?
We're looking at a map of the street that Harlow's and Chuggy's both are on.
Is this a fair and accurate copy?
Looks like it, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time, the prosecution requests Exhibit 4 be moved into evidence.
Any objections from the defense?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, it is in.
Miss Singh, which of these buildings is Harlow's Hardware?
Ma'am, Harlow's is the leftmost building.
And which of these buildings is Chuggy's?
The rightmost building.
Your Honor, let the record reflect both buildings have been labeled on the map. Miss Singh, where were you when you were taking out the trash?
So, ma'am, I was in the back of Harlow's. You see that little upside down L the building makes? I was on the big door, kind of on the side of that L.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that Miss Singh's location is marked with a purple X on the map. Where did you see Miss Sutcliffe?
I saw her outside the back of Chuggy's, near the back door of Chuggy's, between the door and the parking lot.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that Miss Sutcliffe's location is being marked with a red X on the map. Miss Singh, how do you know it was Miss Sutcliffe?
Well, ma'am, I've seen her face hundreds of times, and it was still day outside, so I could see her face pretty clearly. I may not know what major I'm going to be in college, but I know Dakota Sutcliffe.
And what time was this?
And this was around 8 p.m., ma'am.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that this map has been labeled the 8 p.m. map. Miss Singh, do you know what Miss Sutcliffe was loading into her truck?
Yes, ma'am. To me, they looked like cans of something.
Do you have any idea what those metal cans were?
From where I was, they looked like cans of paint thinner, the one that we sell at Harlow's.
Was that the last time you saw Miss Sutcliffe that night?
No, ma'am. I saw her again a little bit after 11:30, right before midnight.
Your Honor, let the record reflect a new version of Exhibit 4 is up, labeled the 11:30 p.m. map. Do you know what Miss Sutcliffe was doing?
I think she was leaving the bar, ma'am.
And where were you when you last saw her?
I was in the back of Harlow's again, near the big door in that little L. I was awaiting a delivery.
Your Honor, let the record reflect Miss Singh's location as being marked with a purple X on the map. Where did you see Miss Sutcliffe at that time?
I saw her outside the back of Chuggy's again, this time under a street light.
Where was the street light?
On this map, I would say about the 5th parking spot from the right.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that the streetlight's location is being designated with a depiction of it on the map. Miss Singh, how far away was Miss Sutcliffe from that streetlight?
Ma'am, if I had to estimate, I would say 5 to 7 feet, close enough to the light that I could see her under it.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that Miss Sutcliffe's location is being marked with a red X on the map.
Objection, Your
Yes.
Honor.
You may be heard.
Yes, Your Honor. Objection to misleading the jury. If I may be heard,
Yes, you may.
Miss Singh just testified that she saw Miss Sutcliffe under this streetlight for around a second at 11:30 p.m. However, it's our contention in today's case that this identification of Miss Sutcliffe is actually itself a point of disagreement, and that Miss Singh herself cannot be certain of this identification. Thus, for opposing counsel to definitively label the position on this map as Dakota Sutcliffe misleads the jury into thinking this is a reliable and definitive identification when it is in fact not.
Prosecution, your response?
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Singh is testifying as to her perception of who she saw that night. And this goes towards the weight, not the admissibility of this testimony, and whether or not she actually saw Miss Sutcliffe that night is something that the defense can bring up on cross-examination if they wish.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
You may.
Opposing counsel just mentioned that it's Miss Singh's opinion and that she agrees and acknowledges that the identification is under consideration, that it's not definitive. However, on this demonstrative, it's marked clearly and definitively as if it was the defendant, with no indication that this is simply Miss Singh's opinion.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
No, I'm ready to rule. Thank you. I understand your concerns about this being more prejudicial than probative, but I agree with the prosecution that it goes to the weight and not the admissibility. You are free to cross Ms. Singh on cross-examination and question her as to her whether or not she actually saw Ms. Sutcliffe and the circumstances of the supposed X on the supposed demonstrative. The demonstratives themselves are not going to be admissible for evidence because they are demonstratives and they're not, they will not be with the jury in the deliberation room.
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Singh, I want to be clear. Was your view of Miss Sutcliffe any different between 8 p.m. and 11:30 p.m.?
Ma'am, my view of Dakota was pretty similar. The only thing that was different was the light.
Did that light affect how you could see Miss Sutcliffe?
No, ma'am. Both at 8 p.m. and around 11:30 p.m., there was enough light around Dakota Sutcliffe that I could look at that person and go, oh, that's Dakota.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that both versions of the map from 8 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. are being displayed side by side. Miss Singh, what do you remember happening after you saw the defendant leave her bar?
Ma'am, a few minutes after I saw Dakota leave her bar, I started smelling smoke. And then after that, I saw Chuggies go up in flames.
Thank you, Miss Singh. Nothing further, Your Honor.